Hello and welcome to the show. I am Tophat. Stranger Things Tales from 85 has a lot going against it. It came a few months after the live action show had its worst season ever. The story is complete, so everyone knows what happens to the characters. I haven't seen season 5 myself and don't plan on to, but I know how poorly it ended. Fan goodwill is at an all-time low. There was also a huge concern about continuity errors, since this is supposed to take place between seasons 2 and 3. And more importantly, nobody asked for this. You might be thinking I hated this cartoon, and I wouldn't blame you. Everybody seems to hate it. There's a huge backlash against this cartoon's existence. It's gotten very poor ratings, and tell you the truth, I think the criticisms against this cartoon are unfair because I actually kind of liked it. Stranger Things Tales from 85 is actually pretty good. This is going to be a hot take, but I think it did a lot of things better than seasons 2 through 5. There, I said it. Before you hit dislike, if you haven't already, I don't think this is a perfect show. There are issues with Tales from 85, but it's not continuity errors. From what I know, this is supposed to be non-canon. And if I'm being honest, I actually don't really care about continuity errors at this point, because there's a lot from the live-action show I don't like. But I'll get into it in a little bit, So, without further ado, let's begin. The story is about the kids finding monsters, even though 11 closed the gate. They are trying to figure out what these monsters are, how they got here, and how to stop them. The mystery is pretty good, and it kept me wanting to know what happened next. I'm not really going to go into spoilers, just so you guys know. Just a general overview. I've always felt that Stranger Things has been really good at coming up with interesting stories that holds my attention. Though I will say that after season 1, all the stories would get bogged down with pointless side quests that makes each season boring to watch. Tales from 85 doesn't have that problem. The main reason for that is that it keeps the focus on the 6 main kids. Each season in the live-action show felt the need to add a ton of new characters. I never understood why they did this, since it just made the cast bloated and made certain characters become pointless. A good example of this would be Eddie. I know a lot of people like Eddie, but I knew he was a dead man the moment he was revealed. Mike and Will, who have been with the show from the beginning, were given nothing to do just to focus on this weirdo who was obviously going to die in the end. The story would have been much stronger had they focused on Mike, Lucas, Dustin, and Will being wanted for murder. It would have made the story more personal, since they're characters we all know. Plus, how do you do an entire season about D&D and not focus on the 4 boys being together? I know I'm getting sidetracked, but that's something that really annoys me about the live-action show after season 1. Yes, Tales from 85 introduces a new character. I'll get to her later. It always keeps the focus on the kids. I always felt the kids were the best characters on Stranger Things, so I'm in favor of keeping the focus on them. We do see some of the older characters like Hopper, Nancy, Steve, and Jonathan, but they don't play a huge role, and I'm fine with that. The kids form a group called Hawkins Investigating Club, or IHC, And they leave boxes all over town so people can report any monster sightings to them, though they mostly get filled with garbage. I really love that they formed this club. It felt like something they would do, and it's a nice way to have them investigate monsters. It's also amazing how these characters never really interacted with each other in the live-action series. Dustin was often with Steve, Will was either missing or moved away, 11 was always away from the others for one reason or another, and Max almost never seemed like she wants to be around the others. Seriously, what was her relationship with the others supposed to be? Was she a friend? An acquaintance? A foe? I was always confused by that. By keeping the cast small, the show allows these characters to play off each other and to let certain moments breathe. A good example of this would be the interactions between Mike and Eleven. I always enjoyed their relationship in the first season. It was nice to see the two of them interact with each other. That is why I was always disappointed that the live-action show never really allowed them to just be together after the first season. I often got the feeling that the writers simply didn't care about them. I'm not saying they needed to be together all the time. I just wish they were together more. In this cartoon, they're together a lot, and I really like that. One of my favorite parts in this show is when Max noticed that Eleven seemed a little sad and encouraged Mike to take her to a fair just to have some fun. Mike was against this idea at first, since they were trying to find the monster, but Max assures him that the rest of the party could handle that. Wow, Max was actually being a good friend. By the way, Max is a lot better in this cartoon than she was in the live-action series. She serves more of a purpose, helps the others more, and acts like a friend. I even enjoyed her relationship with Lucas in this cartoon more than I did in the live-action series. I always felt in the live-action series the relationship felt more one-sided, like Lucas was putting in all the effort and Max never really wants to be around him. I know a lot of people disagree, and that's fine. That's just the feeling I got when watching it. Anyway, the show also handled the fight between Mike and Eleven a lot better than the live-action series. Basically what happened was that Mike made the decision on Eleven's behalf without giving her a say. Eleven didn't like that and is mad at Mike for not asking what she wants to do. The fight was kept in one episode rather than dragged out for the entire season. All that happens is that in the end Mike apologizes and they make up. Imagine that. A cartoon aimed at younger kids handled this fight in a more mature way than the live-action series that's aimed at an older audience. The best parts aren't when the kids are fighting the monsters, even though that is interesting. The best parts are when the kids are just hanging out and doing normal kid stuff, like trying to earn money, shoveling snow, and having a snowball fight. It reminded me of why I fell in love with Stranger Things in the first place. Okay, now for the thing I hated about this cartoon. The character of Nikki. She feels out of place on this show. It felt like she was a self-insert of one of the producers. Nikki's story is basically Max's story from the second season. You know, being the new girl who learns about what happened in the first season, and the gang debating on whether to accept her as part of the group or not. Only she comes off like she's supposed to be in high school rather than middle school. Seriously, how old is this girl supposed to be? She is also close to her weirdo mom, who lets her be punk because cool mom, I guess. Her mom is basically a fill-in for Mr. Clark, who's doing some other stuff. It felt like Mr. Clark could have easily just been in this show. The mom didn't need to exist, and neither does Nikki. I hated every moment Nikki was on screen because she feels so forced. It's like the producers didn't trust that the six main kids could carry the show by themselves. So they added this pump girl to appeal to the cool crowd. And ironically, I don't think the cool crowd would like her. I think they would see her as pandering to them. It's ironic that the producers don't seem to think the six main kids could carry the show by themselves. Because everything Nikki does could have been assigned to one of the other kids. She builds the equipment they use to fight the monsters. The four boys are science nerds, so they could have built the equipment themselves. Heck, they could have just had Dustin build the equipment, since he's the biggest nerd in the group. She hangs out with Will and tries to cheer him up. They could have just had one of the other boys do that. Like, maybe have Dustin do it, since he really doesn't interact with Will that much. Or they could have just had Lucas do it, because we don't see those two interact so much. The characters explain the events of the first two seasons to Nikki for the benefit of the viewers who haven't seen them or forgot. The internet exists for anyone to look up what happened. If they want to explain things within the cartoon, they could have just had a moment where the characters we already know are discussing it amongst themselves. Nikki really doesn't need to exist. No, she doesn't die in the end. I don't know why they decided to keep her alive, but they did. My favorite episode is episode 5, where a picture of Eleven using her powers ends up in the hands of one of those magazines that print stories about Bigfoot, and the gang are trying to get it back, with the help of Nancy. It's my favorite because Nikki is barely in it. The showrunners point out that the main source of inspiration for this cartoon are TMNT, He-Man, She-Ra, and the real Ghostbusters. I could really see the influence, especially from the real Ghostbusters, though I think those cartoons are better than Tales from '85. That's not to say that Tales from '85 is bad. It's just that, given the choice, I would choose one of those old cartoons any time. They were just made better, in my opinion. I do have 4 suggestions of making Tales from '85 much better than it is. So here they are. 1. Get rid of Nikki. 2. Make the episode stand alone. There can be an overarching story, but they should have done a Monster of the Week, like the real Ghostbusters. That's more in line with what a cartoon from the '80s would have done. 3. Recreate the animation style of the old '80s cartoons, like make it 2D and not 3D. And 4. Build character interactions we don't get to see from the live action show. For example, have Will interact with Dustin or Lucas alone. We never get to see Will interact with them without Mike. With those suggestions out of the way, and looking at the cartoon as is, do I recommend it? I don't know. I don't think most people would like this cartoon, even if I gave a recommendation. Especially if you're not already a fan of Stranger Things, and even if you are, it would probably be too childish for you. Many have called this a soulless cash grab. I don't agree with this opinion because I always got the feeling they were trying to make something good, even if it didn't always work. I feel like this show would have gotten a better reception if it came out before the backlash of Season 5. It could have been a nice filler while everyone waited for the final season, making it easier to recommend. If I were to give a recommendation, I would only say that you should check out the first episode to see if it's for you. Most will probably hate it, but some might like it. In fact, it might develop a fan base over time as the backlash of season 5 dies down. Though honestly, I think this cartoon will be forgotten in the future. It'd be a side note in the history of the show, and maybe that's for the best. So go check it out if you're curious, but be aware that you may not like it. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.